Chapter 1, Lily's Inheritance. Lily was just 10 years old when her great-grandmother passed away. She had always been close to her great-grandmother, spending hours listening to her stories and exploring her old Victorian-era house on the outskirts of town. When her great-grandmother died, Lily was heartbroken. But as she looked around the old house, she noticed something that caught her eye. A beautiful and elaborate doll's house sitting on a small table in the corner of the room. It was a miniature mansion, complete with tiny furniture and dolls that looked like they belonged in a fairy tale. Lily had never seen anything like it before. As she approached the doll's house, she felt a strange energy emanating from it. She couldn't explain why, but she knew that this doll's house was different from any other toy she had ever played with. Lily's parents didn't know what to do with the doll's house. They suggested donating it to a museum or selling it to an antique collector, but Lily couldn't bear the thought of parting with it. Her great-grandmother had given it to her, and she felt a deep connection to it. She begged her parents to let her keep it, and eventually, they relented. For weeks, Lily spent every spare moment playing with the doll's house. She would arrange the furniture, dress up the dolls, and imagine herself living inside the miniature mansion. But as time went on, she began to notice strange things happening around the doll's house. The dolls seemed to move on their own, and Lily heard odd noises coming from the doll's house at night. At first, she tried to ignore the strange occurrences, thinking that her imagination was playing tricks on her. But as the noises grew louder and the doll's movements became more pronounced, Lily became convinced that something was wrong with the doll's house. She knew that she had to figure out what was happening, but she didn't know where to start. One day, while playing with the doll's house, Lily noticed a small compartment in the back of the house that she had never seen before. It was hidden behind a piece of miniature wallpaper, and it was just big enough for a single sheet of paper. Curious, Lily pulled out the paper and began to read. It was a letter written by her great-grandmother, warning of a curse that was placed on the doll's house generations ago. Lily's great-grandmother wrote that a witch had been wronged by Lily's ancestors and had vowed to haunt the family for generations to come, using the doll's house as a conduit for her dark magic. Lily was shocked by what she read. Could it be true that the doll's house was cursed? Was it possible that a witch was haunting her family through the tiny mansion? She didn't know what to do, but she knew that she had to tell someone. Lily confided in her best friend, Sarah, about the strange occurrences surrounding the doll's house. Together, they decided to investigate and try to uncover the truth about the curse. Little did they know, they were about to embark on a journey that would change their lives forever. Chapter 2, The Mystery Deepens. As Lily and her friends started to explore the doll's house, they noticed that something was off. It wasn't just the eerie feeling that permeated the air, or the strange noises that seemed to come from within the walls. It was the dolls themselves. They seemed to be moving on their own. At first, Lily thought it was just her imagination. But as they continued to explore, the movement of the dolls became more pronounced. They would shift positions when nobody was looking, and their eyes seemed to follow the group around the room. Lily's friends were starting to get scared, and she couldn't blame them. Even she was starting to feel uneasy. But she couldn't help but be fascinated by the mystery of it all. One doll in particular caught her attention. It was an old-fashioned porcelain doll, with curly blonde hair and a frilly pink dress. Lily couldn't shake the feeling that there was something special about this doll, something that was connected to the strange occurrences happening in the doll's house. As they continued to investigate, Lily and her friends discovered a hidden compartment in the back of the doll's house. Inside, they found an old journal, its pages yellowed and brittle with age. Lily carefully opened the journal and started to read. The journal belonged to a woman named Charlotte, who had lived in the house many years ago. She wrote about how the dolls in the doll's house had always seemed to have a life of their own. She described how they would move and speak when nobody was looking, and how she had always been afraid of them. But then, one day, Charlotte had discovered the secret behind the dolls. It was a secret that had been kept hidden for generations, a secret that had been passed down through the family for hundreds of years. Lily's heart was pounding as she read on. She knew that she had stumbled upon something incredible, something that could change everything. But then, she heard a sound coming from behind her. She turned around and saw the dolls moving, this time more forcefully than before. They seemed to be trying to communicate with her, their tiny hands grasping at the air. Lily's friends were screaming in terror, but she couldn't move. She was transfixed by the dolls, and by the realization that she was the only one who could uncover the truth behind the haunted doll's house. Chapter 3: The Curse Revealed. As Lily tried to make sense of the moving dolls, she couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The dolls seemed to be trying to tell her something, but what could it be? Just then, Lily's attention was drawn to the porcelain doll that had caught her eye earlier. It was now standing on the floor, its eyes locked onto Lily's. Suddenly, the doll's mouth started moving, as if it were trying to speak. At first, Lily couldn't make out the words, but as the doll continued to speak, its voice became clearer. "Help me," it said, its tiny voice barely audible. Lily was stunned. The doll was actually speaking to her. But how was that possible? As Lily tried to process what was happening, the other dolls started to move as well. They were all trying to communicate with her, their tiny voices blending together in a haunting chorus. Lily's friends were too scared to move, but she knew that she had to do something. She had to help the dolls, even if it meant putting herself in danger. She picked up the porcelain doll and held it close to her face. "What can I do to help you?" she whispered. The doll's eyes seemed to glow, and Lily felt a strange energy course through her body. Suddenly, she was transported to another place, a place that was dark and foreboding. As she looked around, she realized that she was in the doll's house, but it was different somehow. The walls were covered in cobwebs, and the air was thick with the smell of decay. Lily's heart was pounding in her chest, but she knew that she had to keep going. She had to find out what was causing the strange occurrences in the doll's house, and she had to break the curse that had been placed upon it. As she explored the house, she came across an old diary. It belonged to a woman named Elizabeth, who had lived in the house over 100 years ago. Elizabeth had been a doll maker, and had created many of the dolls that were now haunting the doll's house. But there was a dark secret behind Elizabeth's dolls, a secret that had been passed down through the generations. Elizabeth had made a pact with a dark force, and had infused her dolls with accursed energy. The dolls were now trapped in the house, unable to leave or be destroyed. Lily felt a wave of horror wash over her. She had to break the curse, but how? And how could she do it without putting herself in danger? As she turned to leave the room, she felt a cold breeze on the back of her neck. She turned around and saw the dolls, all of them, standing in front of her. Their eyes were glowing, and Lily could feel their energy pulsing through her. Suddenly, she knew what she had to do. She took a deep breath and held the porcelain doll close to her chest. "I'll break the curse," she said, her voice strong and clear. As she spoke the words, she felt a powerful force surge through her body. The doll started to glow, and Lily could feel the energy of the curse being lifted. As the glow faded, Lily found herself back in the cabin. Her friends were staring at her, their faces full of awe and wonder. Lily knew that the haunted doll's house was no longer haunted, and that she had been the one to break the curse. From that day on, the dolls remained still and silent, a testament to the power of one young girl's courage and determination. Chapter 4: The Witch's Revenge. As soon as the group stepped out of the house, they felt a chill run down their spines. The air had turned colder and the sky had darkened considerably. The dolls in the dollhouse seemed to be staring at them with accusing eyes. As they made their way back to the car, they heard a loud crackling noise. Turning around, they saw that the dollhouse was on fire. Flames were leaping out of the windows and smoke was billowing out of the roof. Panicking, they ran towards the house, but the fire had spread too quickly. The dolls inside were burning up along with the house. Lily was inconsolable, sobbing uncontrollably as she watched her beloved dollhouse burn to the ground. It was as if all her dreams and hopes had turned to ashes. Suddenly, they heard a blood-curdling scream. It was coming from the woods nearby. Without thinking, they ran towards the source of the noise. As they neared the edge of the woods, they saw a figure in the distance. It was an old woman, dressed in ragged clothes and holding a stick. She was screaming curses and incantations at them. The group froze, unsure of what to do. The old woman continued to curse them, and suddenly, they heard a loud crack. A bolt of lightning had struck a tree nearby, causing it to crash to the ground. The old woman cackled with delight, as if she had caused the lightning strike herself. It was then that they realized she was the witch who had cursed Lily's family. Enraged, Lily stepped forward and confronted the witch. She demanded to know why the witch had cursed her family and what she had to do to break the curse. The witch laughed and told Lily that the curse was unbreakable. She had cursed Lily's family for generations to come, and there was nothing anyone could do about it. Lily refused to accept this and began to argue with the witch. But the witch just laughed and disappeared into the woods, leaving the group standing there, bewildered and scared. As they made their way back to the car, they discussed what they had seen and heard. They knew they had to do something to break the curse and put an end to the witch's reign of terror. But what could they do? They had no idea where to start. All they knew was that they had to try. As they drove away from the burned remains of the dollhouse, they vowed to find a way to break the curse and put an end to the witch's revenge once and for all. Chapter 5: The Final Showdown. As the sun began to set on the eve of Halloween, Lily and her friends gathered in the old mansion. They knew that this was their final chance to break the curse and put an end to the haunting of the dollhouse. Lily held the key tightly in her hand, feeling the weight of it as she walked towards the door of the cursed room. She knew that the witch's spirit was waiting for her on the other side, ready to exact her revenge. With a deep breath, Lily inserted the key into the lock and turned it. The door creaked open, revealing the cursed dollhouse, its doll's eyes glowing eerily in the dim light. Suddenly, Lily heard a faint whisper, "You shouldn't have come back." It was the witch's voice, and it sent chills down her spine. But Lily stood her ground, determined to break the curse. As she entered the room, Lily saw the witch's ghostly figure standing in front of the dollhouse, her eyes fixed on Lily. The witch raised her arms, and the dolls in the dollhouse began to move on their own, their eyes now glowing brighter and their movements becoming more erratic. Lily knew that she had to act quickly. She pulled out the book of spells and began to chant the incantation to break the curse. The witch's figure began to waver, and the doll's movement slowed down. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning struck the mansion, and the power went out. In the darkness, Lily could hear the witch's cackling laughter, taunting her. But Lily continued to chant the spell, her voice growing louder and more confident. And then, finally, with a bright flash of light, the curse was broken. The dolls in the dollhouse fell to the ground, lifeless, and the witch's ghostly figure vanished into thin air. The mansion was silent once again, and Lily could feel the weight of the curse lifted off her shoulders. As she emerged from the room, Lily was met by the smiling faces of her friends, who had been waiting outside. They all hugged and congratulated each other on their victory over the witch's curse. And from that day on, the mansion was no longer haunted. The dolls in the dollhouse remained still and silent, no longer cursed by the vengeful spirit of the witch. Lily had saved her family's legacy and freed the mansion from the grip of the witch's revenge.